So here's another traditional French billhook. These are big, heavy blades. You can see the massive amount of steel that flares out here. That goes into the tang, which is full length. It's usually pinned over there at the bottom. This one has an exceptionally huge handle, so it's made for someone with a fairly large hand and a rather open, loose grip. The curve that's in this blade, you can see how it sweeps up. I don't think that was actually intended to be that way. It's probably just a result from years of rather sloppy sharpening. You can see the spine is actually pinned over. These are used like really hard, and I mean, so that's hit with a hammer on the back to use it to split wood. So I mean, they do use these to baton, but they're hitting them with hammers and things like that. They're not, I mean, these are rough use to a point where it's beyond what most people would consider rough use for blades. First thing I did when I got this, of course, is just basically cut the rust off the edge. This is, I mean, caked with layers of rust. So the edge is just roughly apexed. I'm not going to put much time into sharpening it until I just get a feel for handling it, of course. The handle was, I mean, again, baked on years of sweat. That was all ground off. I started pouring linseed oil down the top of the handle. I don't want to go really too heavy with it until I get it to the point where the handle is no longer soaking up linseed oil, because using it when the handle is really dry is most likely going to cause it to split. So all I want to use it for now is just get a feel for how it handles some light vegetation. I might use up to some springy wood, and again over the course of the next few days just keep adding linseed oil till the handle nice and stabilizes. You can see now, if you look at it, the handle is absorbing linseed oil that fast that it's basically drying out. So you can see that's raw wood right there again. So I mean, this was really dry, but this should be interesting to work with. So first thing I'm going to do is start off, you can see some very light vegetation. So I'll just get rid of that and just get some idea for how it handles. It's hard to describe how well this works on the vegetation. That hook there at the end essentially just pulls everything straight out of the way. You're not as much chopping or cutting as it's just flying straight through it. Now, I do need to clean it up a bit more. As I said, I just knocked the scale off the edge, so it won't actually cut really fine grasses yet. Again, I haven't really sharpened it, just knocked the rust off, but again, this will be a bit shaky because I'm filming it while I'm doing it. But just to give you an idea, again, all that happens is this hook is just catching it and cutting straight through it. And due to the sheer weight, power of this thing, that doesn't even slow it down. So for this class of vegetation, I don't want to cut you down, buddy. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculously easy to go through it. And the nice thing is the hook allows you just to clean this stuff up, move it out of the way, and I mean, no problem, clear this little patch up. And again, use the hook, straggler there, to just sweep this out of the way. Lovely tool for that. Now the handle takes some getting used to. I'm using a much looser grip than I normally would do, but I'd want to work with it for a while before I really gave any definite thoughts on it. But I'm used to smaller handles, and that's all I'd say about now. But initial impressions, for your occasional patches of light grasses like that over there, this thing sails through them. The hook is excellent for just moving them around, clearing it up. The only thing is your reach is a bit short. Again, they sell these, or you can get them with socket handles for poles, which is normally what I would want. This obviously is made for much heavier use than light vegetation, but again, just as an example of what it can do. And just to show you that the grind on these, even though these are very heavy duty tools, the edge angle that these are normally sharpened at is between 10 to 15 degrees per side. So they have the same edge angle as found on your small folders. So again, this is roughly apex. I wouldn't even consider this sharpened. All I just did was I took a belt, I knocked the rust off, and if you look at it carefully, you can even see where the edge has all these little dimples in it, because I didn't even move past back where the rust had eroded the edge. But the angle is still so low that even though it's not overly sharp, it'll still cut through this like it's not even there. So these were ground to cut well, even though, again, massively thick, lots of steel here. As I expected, I mean, this is basically a tool of mass destruction. It goes through this class of wood like it's not even there. The wood is cut right next to the ground in single passes, chops. If you hit more than one of them, it'll go through the same amount. The tip, the great thing about the tip on this is that it prevents the main body of the blade from slamming into the ground. So if you'll notice, if I zoom in on the tip, see the tip gets rather rounded, and again that happens because these are used for rough work, weeding and rooting and that kind of stuff. So the tip does generally get impacted, but I mean, this makes this kind of task absolutely trivial. It has the weight, the raw power on the swing, it has a nice tapered profile, the edge has a nice acute angle, it just zips through this material. So I spent another 10 minutes cleaning out the light vegetation. I use my left hand for most of this work. I'm right hand dominant, but I believe in being experienced with my left hand, just in case something does happen, I get injured or whatever. I can use my left hand. I'm not totally clueless. I found that it was actually easier to use the larger handle with my left hand because I wasn't as biased as I am with my right hand. As again, most of my handles are a bit more narrow, so I was judging that when I was using my right hand. I don't do that much work with my left hand, so I didn't have that much of a built-in bias. So all I had to do was use a more open grip, a looser grip. It's very difficult to keep a grip tight when it's that wide. And what I found was to take advantage of the just weight and power of this thing. I'm not quite willing to move on to heavier woodwork yet. Again, I want to make sure the handle stops soaking up linseed oil like it is right now. But I started coating it yesterday, still very dry. Hopefully by tomorrow it'll be to the point where it's not looking like it's still so dry and absorbing it so fast, because I don't want to break the handle. And then hopefully I should be able to get to do some woodwork either tomorrow or Monday. But I'm happy enough, pleased enough with this now, that I am going to put a proper edge on it that's sharp enough to cut even these actual just grasses, as you can see over here, which is one cut now. I mean, you need a decently sharp blade to do that. I mean, this right now will slice a piece of photocopy paper, but it will not slice, say, newsprint or light magazine paper, and that's the kind of sharpness you want to be able to cut light grasses like that properly. But again, very pleased with the initial performance. Lots of power, lots of weight. The hook on the front is just really useful in terms of trapping the vegetation, allowing you to move the vegetation, protecting the main body of the blade. And after I get a feel for this, I don't think I'm going to do it this weekend, but probably next weekend when I'm more comfortable with the handle, I'm definitely going to be doing some heavier wood work with it, because again, this is what this is made to do. This is a lot of metal, You can see there's just a lot of metal retained down here, and this just flares out massively. I mean, this is not a light use tool by any means, and you can see how peened over the spine was, again, because these were used to split wood traditionally, but it wasn't with a wooden baton. They were pounded on with a hammer. I mean, these were used to split relatively difficult wood. I mean, this is built to take abuse to the level that most people wouldn't dream of putting on a blade, and like I said, it's not considered abuse for this. That's just run of the mill. That's what they were made to do. I mean, this is the kind of thing that when you think on emergency survival type tool and the level of durability, and that's what these things are. I mean, they're made to withstand and last essentially a lifetime. There's enough steel in this, and the way the handle is constructed at both ends, protected. Even if the wood does split, it's protected and held together. And this tang is usually peened over. It's not in this case, or it was, and it just rusted off. When I got this as a gift from a friend of mine, I mean, this along with 3 other ones that I got just had, I mean, years of just caked on rust and just grimy handles. So I mean, lots of years put into them and lots of years back. Really happy with this. I'm going to clean up the edge now. Like I said, it's not dull by any means. I mean, there's light vegetation. I mean, it'll easily cut the leaves off, you know, but it's not the kind of really snap sharpness that you want for cutting light grasses. And I want to make this into a more capable tool, so I'll really put a nice edge on this now. Very happy with it so far.